All right, so today is June 9th. So I was thinking tonight how in 1967, from June 5th through June 10th, so in this very critical day of June 9th, it was one of those 6 days that created, of course, what we call the Six-Day War. It wasn't called the Six-Day War then, but historically we look back and we're like June 5th, June 6th, June 7th, June 8th, June 9th, June 10th? In 6 days? Wow. The Six-Day War, 1967. Now we're 2025, and its energy is still unbelievable. We had Egypt and Syria and Jordan, and with some help of Iraq and some help of Lebanon. All of these five countries, far, far larger than, at that time, actually very tiny Israel. Five Arab countries committed to wipe out Israel. Just to look at the numbers for like a second. We had 264,000 troops, between about 250 and 300 aircraft, 800 tanks. They had combined 4,600, no, I said that number wrong, 465,000 troops, right? Almost double, almost double. We have 264,000. They have 465,000 troops.
No.
Right? We have between 250 to 300 aircraft. They had 800 aircraft. We had 800 tanks. They had 2,504 tanks. And we all know who won. That was literally these days. These days, it's the energy of these days. We say the energy is cyclical. So these days, June 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Today's June 9th, right? These days, 1967, talking about some 57 years ago, these days, the Six-Day War. And this concept, this massive enemy, bent on wiping out, snuffing out little young Israel. 1967, Israel hadn't been around so long. It was since 1948, 1967, hasn't even been 20 years. We're going to snuff out this little Israel. We're going to squash her. Gone, nothing. Like I said, we know who won. It's like we see in the Torah, on the Torah portion of Vayishlach, the entire last section of the Torah portion of Vayishlach is listing, first it lists all the dynasties of Seir that lived in the land of Esav before him, and then all the kings of Edom who came from Esav, all the chieftains of Esav, many verses. 24 verses listing horrible, absolutely evil people. All of them were conceived in immoral, illegitimate relationships that would blow the mind way past any soap opera dramas. Born in evil, steeped in evil, continuing the evil. 24 verses, an entire, as we call it, aliyah, an entire Torah section. About 1/7 of that Torah parsha. And then they're all gone. They're nothing. They're all destroyed. Because we speak in the opening verse of the next portion, Vayeshev, there's a spark from small little Jacob. And that spark from small little Jacob consumes all these 24 verses, all the might, all the power, all the noise. It's all gone. I'm bringing the Six-Day War. That's now. These verses of Torah, which we do not read now, but I just thought the connection was very obvious. What should be our practical takeaway of these two ideas combined? Not to be intimidated by evil. Things can look big, they can look powerful, and they crumble in the face of godliness. And what does this mean for us? Because I think this is very relevant in the world we live in. Yes, our world today. We don't have to go back to 1967. We could talk about 2025. Since October 7th, for sure, even more intently. Many times there are things that scare us. You know, we see political power going in crazy directions. We see what's going on in our world. We see overt anti-Semitism that I would never have dreamt it could possibly exist in America and all over the free world. It could be very scary, but it's only scary if we believe in its power. It's only intimidating. It only affects us if we allow it to. Now, we're allowed to hate evil. That's not a problem. We're supposed to hate Amalek, right? The embodiment of evil. We're allowed to hate evil? Absolutely. That doesn't energize it. That doesn't just feed it. When we hate evil, that helps destroy it. But what we can't do is fear evil. Like I think a lot has happened in our world, and a lot of people, a lot of Jews, walk around in fear. It's almost like the Holocaust PTSD. We can't have that. The Bob Trevor speaks how this world is not the 1930s. It's a different world. It's not a world that we should be fearing, because when we fear, we actually energize that which we're fearing. It's a different world. On one hand, we see a lot of negativity. On the other hand, we have to know that it's a different world. It's a world that doesn't have that same negative energy that the world used to have. Doesn't necessarily mean that the world is good, but it could mean that the evil is deflated. Maybe not so good, but not able to harm us. Maybe some parts of the world that used to be bad have become good because the world has changed. Lubavitcher Rebbe says that the force of Esav, the force that, like Rome, the Western world, that energy has been refined. Refined doesn't mean necessarily they're good. Some parts of it could have become good. And some parts, it means that enormous, enormous energy and power they had is stripped from them, is absorbed by us. It's like a big deflated balloon. A lot of show without anything in it, a lot of noise. And in general, I know the Lubavitcher's perspective on America, despite whatever we might be wondering about America, is that it's a good country, it's a positive country, it's a country of kindness. So basically, we have a choice. And again, I think for many of us, since October 7th, this choice has become far more real, relevant, crystallized. We can trust, we can ignore, we can hate, or we can fear. And some people feel that, well, we have to fear, because if we fear, that means we're prioritizing it, and that means we're responding to it. But no, fearing empowers. When we fear evil, we empower evil. It's actually told about Moses, about Moshe, that there were two Jews that were starting up with him. These were like the two bad guys of the Jewish people. We see them several times in the storyline by the Exodus. Their name was Dasan and Aviram. And I don't want to go into the whole backstory, why, what happened. But they were starting up with Moses, with Moshe, and they were like, oh, we're going to go tell Pharaoh what you did because you killed an Egyptian and we're going to get you in trouble. And the verse says, and Moses was scared. He feared them. He understood. They meant it. However horrific it might seem that a Jew is going to try to get another Jew in trouble, actually for the Jew saving them because Moses killed the Egyptian who had been harming them, but let's not go there, right? But the verse says that Moses was scared. And then the verses continue, and they actually did that. They went to Pharaoh, and they tried to get Pharaoh so upset with Moses that he would kill him. And God miraculously saved Moses' life, and he had to flee Egypt. And he left Egypt for about 40 years. So we're looking at those verses. The question is, why do we need to know that Moses was scared? Dasan and Aviram say, oh, you're starting up with us. You want to start up with us? Like, we know you killed that Egyptian. We're going to go to Pharaoh. We're going to tell him what you did, that you killed an Egyptian, because the day before Moses had killed an Egyptian who was starting up with Dasan or Aviram. Oh, we're going to go. And then they went, and they got Moses in massive trouble. And Pharaoh truly did try to kill Moses, and only with God's intervention was Moses' life spared, and he was able to run away. Why does the verse have to tell us, and Moses feared? How does that propel the storyline further? What do we need to know that fact for? Well, we're told that the reason why the verse tells us, and Moses feared, is because that was the catalyst that gave them the power to go to Pharaoh. It did move the story on. If Moses hadn't feared them, they wouldn't have been able to do what they did. He literally gave them power by fearing them. And that power allowed them to go to Pharaoh and try to get rid of it. It's a very, very powerful concept in general. Whenever we deal with the evil, and there's lots of different colors and flavors of evil in our world. There's lots of different things in our world that are evil. But whenever we deal with evil, as we fear it, we empower it. We can hate it. You're allowed to hate evil. We can hate it. We can ignore it. We could disregard it. But if we fear it, we empower. Has anyone here experienced this in either direction? Like when they have fallen into fearing evil, or when they've managed to not fear it and ignore it? Anyone had this experience in either direction? I'm sure many of you have encountered anti-Semitism in your lives, so anyone can think of a time how they responded when they encountered, it doesn't have to be the evil of anti-Semitism, so that's sort of an obvious one that we've been referring to, or any other evils that you've feared it and what the consequences were, or not, and what the consequences were. Anyone has memories in either direction?
There's a there's a book called Young Lions, written by I think Irvin Shaw, and this is about um, a young man who went to um, it was during World War II, I think. And it was so he it was a young Jew, and he was a New Yorker, and he voluntarily uh, like got himself drafted to the front line, uh, like to fight in a war, and so he was the only Jew in that in his group of soldiers, and the other soldiers were American Southerners. And so this book is about how he was bullied severely, and he stood up to that anti-Semitism, and it was just like a great book, great example.
So you're saying he was bullied by the other soldiers in his unit.
Yes. Mm-hmm. By the Southerners
Makes sense.
for him being a Jew.
Sure,
And
sure, of
he
course. In
called
those
him
days,
out.
in those days in America, that was very, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was surprised to find out that, you know, that could happen. Like the soldiers, they're fighting in the, like for the same country, in the same unit, and he was bullied. So he called each one of them to a fair fight. And he like, he duked it out with each one of them. And he got beaten, but he won one fight. And so the moral is that he did not fear. He stood up for himself.
And when he stood up for himself, did that win him the respect of the other men?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right,
Yeah, he became, respected by everyone.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. 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 Exactly the point. Anyone else? Anyone else has seen something like this in their reality?
Um, Growing up in Kishinev, I always heard um, older Jews were saying things like this, that anti-Semites respect more when you're openly Jewish and religious, they uh, they almost fear you. That's what older Jewish people were saying. And sometimes I would see it that uh, even big anti-Semites, they would shrink in the face of observant Jews.
Hmm. Wow. Well, I definitely know we say that anti-Semites, I don't know if you use the term anti-Semites, but people respect Jews who respect themselves, and when we respect ourselves and we're confident in who we are and our special mission in this world and our special power in this world, the world, you're right, shrinks. When we're apologetics and we're uncomfortable with who we are and we're trying to pretend we're not who we are, yeah, the world knows and the world scorns that. And when we respect ourselves and don't fear them, and you're saying in those days in Russia to be overtly religious, that took a lot of courage and strength. And they saw that and they sensed that. It's like we say, going back to the 6-Day War. And the 6-Day War is when the Rebbe came out with a campaign for all men and boys over bar mitzvah to put on tefillin. And the Rebbe kept quoting the verse that when they see this on you, they will fear you. When you put on the tefillin, they will fear you. And of course, I'm sure we all know the crazy, irrational fear the Egyptians and the Syrians and the Jordanians had of the Jews, that literally you see on video, like entire divisions just turning around and running, and like they're not running from anything. Nobody's there. Literally, they're running from nobody. They had this paralyzing fear of what? They were saying is the power of the tefillin. They'll fear us. And we saw they did. So it makes so much sense what you're saying, Rivka, and it's so precious that you saw that, because you have it as part of your own experiential history, that when a Jew is proudly a Jew, the evil ones shrink. They do. They really do. So sometimes on this global scale, when we're talking about saying anti-Semites in the world, the Six-Day War, the 24 verses of Esav in the Torah, it's sometimes very clear to understand that they have no power. We don't fear them because fearing is empowering them. Everything is in God's hands, and God's hands are very good hands and very safe hands and very trustworthy hands. It's sometimes like a little easier to see that, but it's also true personally. It's also true in terms of our own reality, our own life, our own inner world. When we see evil in our inner world, when we see things that are wrong, that are negative, maybe in our spouse, maybe in a parent, maybe in ourselves, we also shouldn't fear that evil. We also shouldn't believe in its power. And not believing in its power is the key. Again, it's the same key. It's the key to destroying it. So just like we know in the world at large, like Rivka is saying, the people that were evil shrunk in the presence of a Jew who was proudly showing he was a Jew, in the face of that revealed godliness. It's also in obviously a different level in terms of ourselves, when we're also, we'll just say, in a bad space, when we're nervous, when we're bored and antsy, when we're overeating, and then we're upset with ourselves for how we're junking up our body, and then we still do it. It's really, in a sense, the same approach that we look at the world, at the powers out there, at the anti-Semites in the world, at the unrest on the college campuses, on social media's, reactions and everything. I mean, we all know everything going on, or we know more or less a lot going on. So we know what's going out there. So it's sort of sometimes easy to look at stuff out there and say, oh yeah, that's evil. And I empower it if I fear it, and I will not fear it, and I will shrink it. And it's also the same true in our own lives. And basically, like saying, like very simple example, you're in a bad mood and you don't feel good, and you're, like I said, I don't know, eating poorly, and then upset with yourself for eating poorly, and then eating more poorly. Basically, the same idea. One, we have to identify that as evil. An evil inside that's gripping us. An evil that's getting me to feel bad and do what I resolve not to do. Then two, I have to remind myself, same thing like in the world, evil has no power unless I empower it. Evil is an absence of light. Evil only feeds off me if I allow it to. And then three, just like in the world, I need to ignore it. If I'm upset and nervous and unhappy, ignore it would mean be in a good mood, or at least act like I'm in a good mood, because obviously the evil is trying to get me to be upset. And I have to keep forcing that positive energy and keep acting with positive energy and put on happy music, dance, get myself excited over something, hum, and just walk around with energy and keep doing that until the negativity goes away. Or again, the same thing could apply to anything in our lives. If your husband's always on the phone and is giving it much more attention than he's giving you, one, same steps. identify the evil that's causing him to do this. 2, remind yourself that evil has no power unless you empower it. 3, consciously choose and resolve not to empower the evil. And then 4, I mean, in this case, ignoring the evil would mean interact with him normally as if he wasn't looking at his phone the whole time. And truly don't let it bother you, because on the inside, it has no power unless you give it power, and don't give it any power. The idea is the same way in the outer world. There's evil that's so weak unless we give it power. So don't give it power. Also in our own lives, obviously smaller scale, but there's evil, there's negative energies that are so weak unless we give them power. And we shouldn't give them any power. Going a little deeper in this idea, getting a little deeper in this concept, what I was saying in terms of personally was we were looking at situations and trying to diffuse the situation by removing our belief in that evil. If you probe a little deeper, our belief in it is actually a piece of why it's there in the first place. Meaning, let's start with someone else, not yourself. When it's someone else and not yourself, obviously you're only a piece because it's someone else's life, it's someone else's journey, but everything is a hand of God. The fact that this negativity that someone else is struggling with is interfacing with me, I have to take ownership, at least of my part of the problem, which is my belief in it, that I have to suppress that belief in it. I have to squash my belief in that power. And that's actually part of why it exists and why I'm affected by it. Like, it's all ultimately God, and it's all ultimately for my growth. Let me try to give an example so the idea makes sense to you. Then we could try to work with it. Let's start with ourselves. It's easier with ourselves than with someone else. You're upset. You're in a bad mood. I'm upset. I'm in a bad mood. And you're losing it. You raise your voice. You scream at your husband. Whatever. There is 2 levels here. How to stop feeding belief of that power. And then, more deeply, why is this happening in the first place? Why is this happening in the first place is because, I mean, in this specific example, I have a vision of myself that I don't have self-control. And that's the evil I'm feeding. That's the evil I'm feeding because my vision of myself is that I don't have the self-control, and that's how I could lose it and lose my temper and lose my control. Now, why am I feeding that evil? Because I know it's true. I know it's me. I know it's been me forever. I have countless examples inside my head to prove it's me. So I'm not believing in it. I mean, that's just reality. But no, that's not true. I am believing in it. And my belief keeps feeding its manifestation. So when something like that is happening, and of course, everybody has their own examples. I'm just picking sort of one that could be generalized in many different ways in many different situations. But we all have examples. It could be in very different areas. But we all have these types of things going on in our world. And it's like a cycle that we're keep going through. So to stop the cycle, we need to identify the point of truth. This is the point of truth. My belief is feeding this. So if my belief is feeding this, if there's some unhealthy cycle that keeps circling in my brain and my belief in it is feeding it, I need to uproot that belief. Now, to uproot that belief, obviously I need to have something else prepared every time that something crosses my mind. Like in this little example I gave of the person who gets stressed or tense or unhappy and then raises their voice and screams at people. So that person has a belief that I don't have self-control, a belief that this is how I act when I'm stressed or didn't get enough sleep or whatever, have too much pressure in my life. I have that belief in it, such an implicit belief. I don't call it a belief. I think that's reality, but it's a belief in it. So if I know that's my pattern, I need to have ready a different truth to replace this belief in evil. Instead of my implicit belief, I don't have self-control, I can't handle this, I lose it when I'm overwhelmed, I need to have another belief ready, like raising my voice is wrong, and I don't do that however upset I am. And then I have to keep giving myself that message, that truth to believe in again and again and again. Every time that something comes up, I have to basically cling to that message. In other words, to my implicit belief, I scream, I lose it, to I don't do that. I have self-control. I don't fall apart when I'm overwhelmed. And when I stop believing in it, it stops happening. Because again, evil only has the power we give it. Very, very strong concept. Again, it applies cosmically, balance of evil in the world. It applies globally as we look around our world very overtly today. And it applies very, very, very personally. Evil only has power if I give it. And whatever we go through is the very specific divine providence for us, for what we need in our life. So can we change? Can we change these deep-rooted negative beliefs? We can. Now, of course, if you've believed this about yourself your whole life, it could take a while. And maybe if you only developed this belief about a year ago, it might more quickly fade. But we can. We can. We can take ownership and really consciously shift what we're believing in, what we're empowering. And this applies to other people in our world as well. Not even, of course, to ourselves, it's the strongest. I mean, I am the product of my beliefs, my godly beliefs, my erroneous beliefs, my evil beliefs. That's me. But we can even affect other people in our world, which is pretty powerful. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says that when you say or speak negatively about someone else, you're actually affecting them. You're actually strengthening their negativity. This is a very core truth. My belief in someone else's weakness feeds their weakness. My belief in someone else's strength, even though they don't believe in it, but my belief in it actually feeds their strength. It's amazing. Of course, it's a little scary if you think, what are people doing to us? But let's not fear that, but just thinking in terms of how we can impact others. Has anyone tried to do this, to really stop believing in something negative about someone else? Like instead of constantly telling yourself, oh, he has no self-control, saying, I see he has a lot of self-control, or anything along those lines. It's a very powerful tool. It really is amazing sometimes. I actually once was giving a class with non-Jews, Noachites, and a woman there said, it's a non-Jewish woman, she said that she started doing this with her children, that whatever their point of weakness was, she turned it around and like called them whatever, like, you know, she had a very timid child. She said, oh, my strong son, whoever, you know, and she literally kept doing that, like literally naming them the opposite of their point of weakness until she saw the shift. So I don't know if anyone here has ever consciously tried, or just sort of happened that you've done that with other people in your world, pulled away from that natural belief in their negativity and tried to supplant that with believing in their positive, believing in their good, even if you don't see it too much, but like trusting in it. Well, nobody's responding. So maybe nobody's tried. Maybe it might be a hard thing to try, but it's really worth trying. It's worth trying with other people, and it's really, really, really worth trying with ourselves. You know, for some people, it's easier to try with other people. Like you look at, I don't know, whoever, someone in your world, a child, a parent, a colleague, a sibling, a spouse, a neighbor, a friend, and consciously like saying, ooh, that bad quality. No, that's not them. And really trying to really believe in their good to help it emerge. For some people, it's easier to do that with other people. It's a little harder to do that with ourselves. It's harder to see ourselves as clearly. And for some people, it's the opposite. Like other people, they can't even go there. It's too hard for them, but they can see it in terms of themselves, in terms of their own erroneous belief systems, in terms of their own flawed vision of self, and really could try to correct that, and really could try to look at themselves in a different way and see. And again, it's not I'm not trying to say, and 30 seconds later. No, obviously this is real work. But it's amazing work. It's amazing work because we change. And many people that really looked at themselves like, that's me, nothing I can do about it. That's just me. I just get nervous. I just am intimidated by some people. I just don't have social skills. I just can't get myself to work hard and I always procrastinate. Whatever it is, when they look at themselves and they say, that doesn't have to be me. I don't have to believe those negative messages. That's a form of evil. Every time I'm looking at myself and believing in a weakness that strengthens that weakness, I don't have to do that to myself. I can really change. And I can really change that message I'm sending to myself. And I could really shift. It's like a huge power because we could feel so stuck. We don't even think, it's almost like there's nothing to talk about, That's me. And it's not true. It works for ourselves, it works for other people. I think I shared there's a book written by a certain psychiatrist, psychologist, Reuven Feuerstein. He was writing about working with children and changing their thinking. And the title of the book, which I never read the book, I just really like the title, is If You Love Me, Don't Accept Me As I Am. And I thought that's such a powerful title because so many times in the world we're given the message, if you love me, accept me as I am. This is who I am. We tell this to ourselves. This is who I am with all these flaws. That's okay. I can love myself with all my flaws. Or look at other people. Okay, this is who they are. Just accept them. They're weak. They're limited. They're flawed. And that title is saying, no. If you love yourself or others, demand more. We don't have to accept the flaws. We could do better than that. We could change the flaws. So nobody responded that they've done it with others. Has anyone consciously worked to do this with themselves? To really demand a change, that they don't have to believe in some belief that they believed in for many years. And they said, no, that's not true. And I can change. Well, again, it might seem like too much, but it's really super powerful. Okay, let's practice. Nobody's responding. We're going to practice. We're going to try to make this happen. I'm going to give you an example. Okay, this is theoretical. This is not your reality. I'm just giving an example. And for you to, like, in the world of theory, tell me, what message would you use to replace the negative belief the person is feeding themselves? Because that's what we're talking about. That we feed ourselves with a lot of negative beliefs, and evil only exists if you believe in it. Evil only exists if you feed it. So why are we feeding our own evil, right? That's the point we're saying here. Okay? So this is, let's say it's almost the Sabbath. This is in the winter when Sabbath comes in for weeks very, very early, like 4 o'clock, and you feel tense and stressed, and there's no way to do everything you need to do by 4, and every week the same thing happens, and you feel bad, and the house is a mess, and you light your candles late, and you're upset at everyone for not helping you, and you're upset at yourself for not being put together, and the next week the same thing happens. Now, if that message, if that scenario didn't resonate because you're not experiencing the Sabbath coming in at 4 o'clock and not being ready, and you could shift it. It doesn't make a difference to some other event in your life that happens. And, it's the party you're making or the big family dinner, and you're not ready and you feel bad. And when it's supposed to start, it's not good enough and it's not ready. And you're upset at everyone for not helping you, and everything. You look around and everything feels like, no, this isn't how it's supposed to be. And I messed up again. If I was more put together, this would have come off beautifully, and it didn't. And then the next time you make the family party or the gathering or the Thanksgiving meal or the Sabbath dinner, like the same thing happens. So whatever, some scenario along those lines. Just question, just in the abstract. We're trying to do this exercise so you could see what I'm trying to say. What negative message is this, we'll call, say, woman, because we're a group of women. What negative message is this woman feeding herself?
She's not capable.
I'm not capable.
That's it. This is who I am, and I have to just accept myself instead of seeing this as okay.
Wait. Let's get to instead. We're doing it one step at a time. Okay, so Miriam said, I'm not capable. I can't do it. I'm not capable. I'm not put together. I'm not capable of doing what other people do so easily and seemingly stressless, free. I'm not capable. Anyone else has any other versions of the negative message this woman is sending herself?
She's also saying nobody helps me, so she is negative about her surrounding.
So there's a pity party going on. There's the pity party of, I'm not capable, and no one's pulling their weight besides incapable me. I'm not capable, and nobody else even cares. They don't care. If they cared, they would help. They don't care. They're not there for me. Any other negative messages she's feeding herself? Okay, we can accept those two. I mean, I could see many others, and I could definitely see those. That's enough for us to deal with, right? I'm not capable, and nobody else is there for me. Why am I saying this is evil? Meaning, the premise of what we're talking about tonight is evil exists because we feed it. If we remove our power from it, it doesn't have any power. It's illusionary. It's a mirage. We started by speaking about in the world, like the 6-Day War, or the verses in the Torah portion, or anti-Semitism on the streets of Moldova or wherever, or America in 21st century. If we respect ourselves, the world respects us, the world withers. And then we say this applies to ourselves personally as well. And we personally feed the negative messages we send ourselves. We feed them so deeply, we don't even think they're negative messages we send ourselves. This is just the facts, the reality that we're stuck with. So if we're looking at it, we're trying to understand, because now we're working through like an exercise, so to speak, just to make it real. Why am I calling this evil? So here's this woman saying, okay, I'm incapable and nobody cares and nobody's here to help me, so I'm doing it myself. So there's a pity element and perhaps an anger element at other people in her world, and looking at herself as just not very capable. Why am I saying, oh yeah, that's evil, and your belief in it is feeding that evil? Why is that evil? Why isn't it like the facts, which is how we term it in our life, in our headspace? Why am I calling it evil?
Maybe because this how can I say this, the way we probably need to make definition what evil is. So let's say evil in this particular case, it's some abstraction which grows from one instance to next instance as we continue being in the same state and saying we are not capable, we are bad. So today I said this to myself, I'm not capable, I cannot do it. And then next, from today to next time, this abstract, which I'm gonna call evil, is gonna grow to bigger size. And then from this event to next event, it's gonna be even bigger. So would you, that's what you say, and I'm asking now, would you call it feeding, right? We're feeding this evil abstract, and it grows.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It
What
becomes, it
very
becomes,
simply, every time you tell yourself, I can't handle this, you're making yourself smaller. You're shrinking yourself.
right.
Every time you tell yourself, I'm not capable, you push down another notch. And that's an evil. That is definitely an evil because we have to believe in ourselves. We have to expand ourselves. Also, the more you believe in yourself, the more you're going to do. So it's not only that I less believe in myself. In the end of the day, the more I believe I'm incapable, the less I will do, the less I will produce. Like, they say in English, if you need something done, give it to a busy person. We actually have the same expression in Torah. That's an English expression. That's actually a Torah source. Obviously, that's much higher than just an English expression, but it says, in essence, the same point. You only hasten the quick. It's almost like in academics, right? These self-fulfilling prophecies. The weak student doesn't believe they're capable. Well, they're not capable. Okay, so since they're not capable, guess what? They don't pay attention in class. They don't take notes. They don't study for tests. And then lo and behold, they fail. Hey, they knew they were weak and incapable. And the student that believes in themselves pays attention in class, asks questions when they don't understand, takes notes, studies for tests, and hey, they succeeded. Wow, how surprising. So just as it's so clear to see this in the academic arena, it's true in life. It's an evil that makes you smaller and smaller and smaller. When you fall into pity parties and are upset at people in your world, it's an evil that's feeding that and creating this negative energy between you and other people. When you fall into the space of making yourself small, it's an evil that's constricting you and making you smaller and smaller. So what could a person do? I mean, these are the facts. The facts is you're never prepared. You're never, I mean, however you want to window dress that example, you're never ready. You're never put together. Those are the facts. Well, the facts are coming from that belief system. So we start by changing the message you send yourself. In this very specific example, which again, we're just doing as an example, so what I'm saying should be understood. What positive message could this person create to tell themselves every time the negative one pops in their head?
I can do it.
I can do
And
it.
if it did not work today, now I'm gonna look through what happened during this process of my making dinner or doing some process, and where were where did I fail, or what happened? Why was I putting so much trust in somebody who maybe not capable himself?
Did not come through.
So, or maybe didn't have. So basically, just evaluate, evaluate the situation and learn from this.
Okay.
And
I can do it. And
Right.
I'm going to do a self-evaluation here, a
Yes.
self-reflection on a practical basis to know what I'm going to do different next week or next dinner party or next event.
Maybe make notes. That's actually I do. I would, I love to invite people, and I make dinners, and I made few dinners, like big public dinners in synagogues, in my synagogue. And I actually, after every dinner, I go through my menu list and I make notes what I did right, what I could do better, and where I could do like maybe faster, or I don't know, something that I could see could have been improved. But I want to add something else to this whole picture. As soon as person see or achieve something, that person has to bury deep inside that he can do it. And as soon as he at least once have this feeling of success inside, every next time when he will feel, oh, I cannot do it, nothing gonna happen, and again I will be failure. No, 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 no. Just go back to that small, very small, one time, maybe one instance when you felt yourself as a winner, and keep this, like almost like devours this back into your mouth, into your inside of your body. Feel the feeling, and this will help to get through difficulties in this situation. And then as more you have those collected successes, this will make you bigger and fear smaller. And that's probably what successful people live on. This is their motto.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely, absolutely, absolutely right. It's great to like celebrate the success, remind yourself of the success, believe in the success in this specific type of example. And that really can help you like believe the message you're telling yourself. So you're going to tell yourself, I have all the tools, I have all the skills, I'm completely capable. And then you have this little voice in your brain saying, no, you're not. No, you're not. I know you're not. And you have to say, yes, I am. And we do this to other people all the time. I remember very clearly my daughter, I mean, now she's, much older, but I remember she had just finished high school. She was in seminary the year after high school. And there was this whole big thing that she needed to accomplish. And she was like, I can't possibly ever do that, Ma. And I said to her exactly like Miriam is saying, I said, remember last year when you did all the stuff you accomplished last year? Well, you did all that. You could do this. I was like, oh, yeah. It was like, you're right. I can. I did all that hard stuff last year. Well, I could accomplish this as well.
Well,
So
it's great.
yes, we could share it with others, and we could share it with ourselves, this historical truth to remove the cloak of lies of how we look at ourselves. Sometimes, and again, this example I gave could have totally not resonated with you. I'm like, wow, it's totally not you. You never make dinner parties, or they're stress-free and you don't even know what I'm talking about. So it was just an example. I had a few examples to go through, and obviously we don't have time for them. That's fine. But whatever it is, we can get stuck in that web of lies of how we look at ourselves. And sometimes literally, it's a web of lies. Lies, oh, that's why it's evil. Lies designed one way or another to make us small, to make us incapable, to make us fearful. And we can stop and say, those are lies. That's not true. Lies means it's not true. That's not true. This is who I am. And if you don't believe who you are, I think the tip Miriam's saying, catch yourself when you succeed and keep reminding yourself, is great. But in essence, when we can identify the lie and decide we're going to deflate the lie, it's a very, very powerful moment. So this is a time, we're in the week, so to speak. This is June 9th. So this is definitely the time of this energy when the true power blows away all the lies, and we can see it in the world, God willing. We have a lot of arenas in the world to see it in, and hopefully we should see it in ourselves as well, with a lot of work on our part, but we are really capable of doing that work.